Remember, this is again one of those 2 a.m. meetings where we had a full-fledged presentation and we were discussing actual ideas which Mindler could do and deliver. This is a running organization, a startup which already has everything in place, a business plan, model, and still we were looking at a couple of additional elements we could look at, which could help us add more value to the clients. And once we thought in that direction, automatically the revenue bit also came in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Creek Show Founder Series, presented by Creek, your go-to platform where hustlers learn, connect, and interact with each other to scale up their startup ideas. This is your host, Akshita, and today we have on our show CEO and founder of Mindler, Prateek Bhargava, and the director of Mindler, Isha Bagga Bhargava. To tell you a little about Prateek, he is the CEO at Mindler, a double MBA from ISB Hyderabad and MDI Gurgaon. His brilliant track record includes strategy consulting, corporate strategy, and education advisory with organizations like Accenture Strategy and Maruti Suzuki. Having cracked the CAT, GMAT, CLAT, and many more competitive exams, he is an amazing mentor to get to the secret recipe to reach your dream college. Prateek has been awarded the Global Entrepreneur Award by the UAE government and also awarded and recognized by the Ministry of Science and Technology, Government of India, Economic Times, and CIIE IIM Ahmedabad. Now moving on to Isha Bagga, effervescent Isha is a people person who brings to the table a diverse set of skills and experience in business coaching. An alumnus of the University of Delhi and IIM Lucknow, she has pursued her life coaching from International Coaching Federation. As a director at Mindler, she heads partnerships and alliances and is obsessed with creating and implementing strategies that help increase brand awareness. Her expertise in the domain on multiple assignments in countries like the UK, Switzerland, and Canada make her an amazing career coach. In this episode, we talk about strategy, monitoring and feedback of product traction, product roadmap, and a lot more. Let's begin. So, hi Prateek and Isha, we are so glad to have you on this episode of the Creek Show.
Hello, Akshata. So good to be here. I absolutely love the concept behind Creek. So it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you so
Hi,
much.
thank you. Thank you so much for having us. Pleasure.
Thank you. Likewise. So to start off, Isha and Prateek, we'd like to know from both of you that about your journey, the milestones, and where do you see yourself going?
Right. So, Prateek, should I go first?
Sure, all yours.
All right. So, as far as the journey is concerned, it's been an amazing journey so far. Very little time, though. I mean, of course, there's a lot that I am expecting to achieve. But the journey has been great. I mean, right from my schooling to my undergraduation, I have studied psychology, and then I also went and studied outside India. I even worked for a couple of projects in Switzerland, Canada, and UK as well. After which I came back, and the one thing I knew was education sector had my heart. I wasn't sure if it was career coaching, career counseling. I wasn't sure which part of education I would be getting into, but I always knew, I wanted to come back to India and I wanted to get into the education sector. Call it my mother is in the education space, so maybe in my case it worked out beautifully for me, because typically now I'm telling students, don't listen to what your parents say, because you need to decide for yourself what you want to do. But in my case it was something that worked well because I was passionate about it. It suited even the personality I had, and that's when I came back to India, and Prateek and I met, and of course Parikshit, Savinay, Vansh, who are also the other people who are very integral in Mindler. We met, and the entire mission was very simple. It was about revolutionizing the entire career guidance ecosystem. So that was really our agenda. So we built upon it. Of course, the first 1-2 years was about getting credibility, reliability. We built a superb psychometric assessment, which is extremely reliable and credible, very much suited for the Indian audience. We started approaching schools, and from one thing led to the another, where once we started approaching schools, we realized 99% schools don't have career counselors also, and they don't have any kind of career counseling happening there. So that led to another vertical where we came up with certifying career coaches. Then also once we started certifying career coaches, we kind of ideated and we came up with a SaaS platform where we trained career coaches, and then we gave them a software as a service so that they could start their own practice. So overall, of course, this is a small glimpse of what we've been up to in the last 5 years, but it's been a great journey, a lot of learning, a lot of growth mindset needed, and looking forward to improvising on more projects constantly. So yeah, that's been the journey for me so far.
Okay, so if I have to talk about my experience before even I started with Mindler, so I spent about 10 years in strategy consulting, education advisory, corporate strategy. I think that's where the journey really started. Somewhere in my mind, I always knew that entrepreneurship is something which I would tread towards. And the entire journey was about finding the right set of opportunities, discovering what excites me and where do I see the market. So I personally spent a lot of time even before I went out in terms of evaluating different
Right.
opportunities and different markets. And eventually, Mindler came in as a solution to a couple of things which we were exploring and we were ideating on. And a lot of this goes back to the experience that I gained. I think for a lot of people who start and they discover business needs or market needs is largely due to the kind of experience that they had. So my experience in strategy consulting, I got to work with a lot of data-led projects, a lot of big data analytics, a lot of machine learning algorithms going on, and I was able to
Right.
see how all of those were in action. Then my business family background was in the education space. I was somebody who was mentoring students nonstop, so it just all
Mm.
came together,
Right.
and that's where Mindler came into being, and it's an amazing journey so far. It's been exciting. It's been about 5 years now, and it's unique. It's different. It's whatever we decided. The good thing is we are still on that path. Not too many pivots really, but yeah, in terms of the business model, the kind of stuff that we're doing, the kind of
Mm.
innovations that we're doing, the right product market fit. So I think that's an ongoing journey which we are on.
Right. Definitely. I mean, seeing both of you talk so passionately about it, I can definitely tell it's been an exciting journey. And so, Prateek, through your professional experience along with MBA, I saw that you have experience in strategy, leadership, human resource management, finance. So, all these domains are essentially non technical. So, how did you go about creating a tech driven platform, career counseling platform, despite not being the tech guy, if you may? So, did it at any point feel any hindrances, or did you feel limited, or did you efficiently leverage resources?
So honestly, if you ask me, this tech, non-tech jargon really, I don't get it at times. And I see a lot of people having been through multiple incubation programs at IIM Ahmedabad, at ISD, at all these schools. And when I used to go there, there was always this thing which
Mm.
entrepreneurs used to look at is finding a CTO or finding the tech partner. I think it's about the entire journey. It's like when I'm talking about mine, I'm not just talking about myself. So there is Savane in my team who is like the CTO at our organization, and he's been there from day one. So if you have the right set of partners, I think you will never have this. So it's like a beautiful amalgamation wherein I would think of something, we would visualize it, and it's not that just I'm solely thinking about it. It's you as a team, you envision what you want to do, and many times the end product is actually something which Savane would have thought about, which is the CTO
Yeah.
guy thinking about the product also. And many times we would at least Isha and I would never have technical answers to questions, but we would definitely have the right set of problems. We will know what we want to achieve. We will know where we want to go. We will have the vision in place. And I think that's where when all those things comes together, it will happen. So any of the audience who is looking at it and they are budding entrepreneurs and they're wondering about this tech piece, I think it's about finding the right set of partner. Even if you may or may not have the right technical background, and it also really depends upon the technical background in that domain, right? You might be a techie, but maybe what we are building is something
Mm.
completely different. To build a
Yeah.
SaaS platform, to build a machine learning algorithm based platform, I think you need unique set of skills. And we have also grown. Even with Savane, he has brought in his own set of team, own set of partners. So So I think that's something which you can easily take care of when you have the right set of people around.
Right. I agree. It's about identifying the key people and then working unidirectionally to make the product grow.
Yes, agree completely.
So, could you walk us through the journey, Prateek, of from the time that you ideated Mindler to the time that you realized it? The what was the learning curve like, and how did you identify the pain point?
So, in a way, because I am extremely structured, so for me that journey was extremely structured. But by no means do I advocate the same for everyone. I know so many people who have just jumped into it. There are so many people who have done amazingly well with just a thought, and then they have shaped it as they go along. For me, it was very structured. That's how I work. That's how I operate. So even while I was in Accenture strategy, I was working on my strategy consulting project. So those days I started envisioning this, I started researching, I started finding the different ways to go about this, solving this problem. We were also discovering and identifying what are the unique selling points that we would have when we go out there. Even before we went there, I remember I had an Excel sheet which had all 70 companies in India and globally all mapped out with their products, with their price points. So I had done all that, and that's where I say a structured process. And I knew what those guys did not have and what do I want to build. I definitely did not want to come up with a product which is the same, or is just trying to do it in a different way. No. So we knew what we are trying to tap, and that's where the key milestone was stepped in. And when other team members came in, they started envisioning how this has to be expanded, right? So right from building the research team, I remember earlier we had about 40 odd PhDs who we had onboarded for just a 2 or 3 team member organization. We had those were the first set of people who worked with us, did all the groundwork research, and then going on the ground, doing those validations, developing the product. So it was a good 16-month long journey. So once we started, we spent enough time, and in our space, it is something the product is something which has to be validated. It was not something that you could just go out and experiment and see. You were eventually dealing with kids, so you have to be bang on accurate. So you could not do that. Unlike many other products wherein you can have an MVP rolling out and all that jazz. But for us, it was important that we get the product bit right, we get the right set of accolades. So I think those were the key steps which I focused a lot on getting, and those all those awards, all the recognition, getting the government bodies, everything possible. So I remember I spent a lot of time in that initially because I knew that is important for me, and it may not be true for any other startups today. There's so many investment pitches that I would see, and then there's a slide about the awards and all. And honestly, investors don't care about that, right? But for us, for our customer segment, it was extremely important. So it's about identifying what's important for you and then focusing on that, irrespective of what noises you hear around you.
So it was a well mapped out process for you, a very structured process. Right. That's, I mean, also it was a side project initially, or did you take a leap of faith directly with it?
Again, like it wasn't a side project at any stage. Like again, the way I operate it, it's like you have to go all in to get in. So I once I decided that this is something I want to do, I had left my Accenture consulting job. I started, and that's where it took us 16 months. Normally, I've seen a lot of my friends, they're launching their product, and that's where the company gets launched, right? For us, it happens a good 16 months ahead, wherein I wanted full 100% energy and with the right set of team members also, right? All the people who came on right from the early days. So we were all in it all time, full time, and that worked for us. But again, may not be true for everybody. There's so many people who can start with a side project, but not for us.
Right. So as a couple, along with being, founder and director of the same startup, how do you complement each other? Who brings what to the table?
Isha, you want to take that?
Yes, I can start with that one. I mean, yes, as a couple, but I also genuinely feel that we don't really get the whole couple vibe when we're working together. We have, very honestly speaking, we are very different people in general, whether being a couple or whether working together. So we do have different skill set that works out very well for us. Besides, we've made compartments, which means if I'm taking a decision around a particular vertical, Prateek will abstain from taking a decision there, because a lot of decisions are based on gut or on your understanding of the market or the end people, the people who are going to be using the product. And if you have been working on that project for almost a year, 2 or 3 years, you do get a gut and you get some kind of snap judgments where this is what I want to do. Of course, there's a chance of it going incorrect or wrong, or it might not work out, but then that's something that you made it and you learn from your mistakes. You figure out that this wasn't the way of doing it. So we have made those compartments wherein we ensure that he takes decisions for a couple of the segments, and I take my decisions for a couple of segments or the verticals that I'm handling. Of course, we do have our arguments and we do kind of want to pull each other's hair out at times. So I'm not going to deny that's totally normal. And that's not only between Prateek and me. We are just two people who are a part of Mindler, but there are a lot of other stakeholders without whom nothing ticks at Mindler. They are actually the one, like we have Parikshit on our team. He is one of the oldest member and the most experienced person on our team. So of course we are constantly listening to him. So it's like 5 of us are pretty much sitting, which are almost like the key stakeholders, and we're constantly arguing with each other. So the meeting, which is supposed to be for 2 hours, turns out to be 8-9 hours because none of us agree on a particular point. So it's not about him and me a lot of times, because it's about all of us together who are in it together. But yeah, between us we do this compartmentalizing so that there is no kind of there is no difficulty in taking a decision. So that works out very well. And like I said, his skill sets are more of finance strategy, my skills are more of people's communication skills, building a team. So we have that leverage wherein both of us come with a different set of skill sets, so it complements each other, and that's something very very valuable for the entire team. So that works out beautifully for us. So that's what I would say. Prateek, anything you'd like to add?
I think completely agree. I think the partner bit is there, but it's same. I would just say the other 3 founding members would be extension of that. So I think the kind of relationship we enjoy is the same. There could be a little more discussion and debate around that, but it's largely the same. I think Isha and I would discuss as much as Savanya and I would, or Vansh and I would, or Parikshit and I would. It's largely the same. And I think for any business to work sustainably, um, the clarification and in terms of I would not say compartmentalization, but still demarcation of what your roles and responsibilities are, who is accountable for what, is extremely important. When it comes to decision making in terms of discussing and doing all of that, we do that jointly. I still remember during COVID days around March, April, and when we were looking at the entire scenario, right from decisions, from when should we look at restarting work, to what other projects should we look at. Everybody would do their homework, and these calls would go on till 2-3 in the night, and you would keep on ideating, and it's all done together. So it's just like the relationship, it is just like another partner at the workplace. So that's how honestly I look at it. But yeah, but nothing much different there.
Right. So it's a wonderful balance along with complementing each other.
It's a fine balance. I don't know about the wonderful part, but yeah, with its ups and downs, like just typically how it would be if you're working with a group of people. So it's exactly like that there is no priority or preference coming in the way.
Right. So recently, Mindler announced one of the biggest scholarships of about 25 CR. This goes to say that you have taken Mindler with just being, an AI-driven career counseling platform. There are certifications for career coaching and SAT coaching, ACT coaching. I know that since I've used the platform. There are virtual internships as well. So is this product roadmap structured and established well in advance, or do you identify the pain point or the gaps and then seize the opportunity around that?
Right. So I'll share my thoughts first. So especially when it came to the entire scholarship hunt, it was not structured, it was not planned. It is something that in fact, a lot of the projects that have come up in the last 3-4 years, nothing was planned. It was not like in 5 years we're looking at this, or in 3 years this is our plan. Everything is something that we do collectively. We sit and ideate, and then we improvise on the ideas. Like, just to give you an example about scholarship. So scholarship was an idea that was identified around April, May last year, when the COVID situation had happened, and all of us were calling each other up, and we were like awake till 6 o'clock in the morning, because we was like, what next? Schools are shut. What is class 12th going to do now? What next? What should we do? And together, of course, I would say Parikshit also was a very big part of the entire scholarship idea, wherein kind of he came up with one idea, and then all of us improvised on that idea and built upon it in such a manner that it turned out very, very successful ultimately. So scholarship happened in March and May, and that's when we executed the entire logistics, everything. We onboarded close to tons and thousands of interns who worked with us, and we successfully completed the entire scholarship project. So it wasn't something that we had planned, it was something that we worked upon. Of course, now it worked out so beautifully, so this year we will structure it and plan it in even a better manner. That is definitely on our pipeline. Like currently we did it only for the Indian universities. Going forward, we want to loop in overseas universities, so that it's good even for students who are looking at studying outside. SAT, ACT training is also something that we have recently kind of tied up with one of our partners, Collegify, and we're going to be providing this online training of SAT and ACT. So there is no structuring as such. And here, I'd also add on and say that this is something that I learned some time back, which is about the ambidextrous approach of exploring and exploiting at the same time. And this concept stuck by me. There are very few things that stick by me, because I am it takes me a while to really understand something and feel close to it, but this concept really stuck by me. And especially being an entrepreneur, I feel this is something that will help a lot of the entrepreneurs, which basically is of exploring and exploiting at the same time. By the word exploiting, I mean to say what you're already doing, go on exploiting it, have a full-fledged team, make that work, make that run, and at the same time explore, which means people who maybe are at the top, or the management, or even your other team members, constantly keep thinking of what next, what else can we do, because ultimately we are looking at Mindler as really like a one-stop solution for any career planning need, not only what we are doing currently. Like you initially had also mentioned that it was more for students who are in the age group of, let's say, 14 to 22, 23. So our idea is to even expand on that further in the long run. But yeah, that's what I would say. Pratik, of course you can add on.
Yeah, I think I would divide it into two parts. I think one has been the basic business plan, which has been in place since inception. Obviously, we on an annual basis would tweak it. We would identify where more opportunities are, and that's how the budget and spending and everything goes through. So that's definitely one path, and we are progressing on that, which is right from starting from first targeting schools and building a brand, to then looking at building partners. It may not have been envisioned in the SaaS product version, which is today, but yeah, definitely to tap educators and get them on board to use our product. Then there was also training and certification. So those three things happened as we envisioned, and there are a few more pipeline elements which we have thought of, which we want to do in the next 5 to 10 years, which we will do. But yeah, as in when we are growing, different opportunities also come our way. Within the same product, you find opportunities where you could monetize or you could add more value, which we are doing it. Examples of that, I think one, Isha has already talked about the scholarship hunt, which was a brilliant journey. This is something which we had discussed very, very loosely a couple of years back, but never thought of implementing it in the same way, because there were a lot of logic and rational to it. But again, with COVID, everything turned upside down. So those challenges suddenly went out of the window, and we felt like this is a brilliant opportunity. I remember this is again one of those 2 a.m. meetings where we had a full-fledged presentation and we were discussing actual ideas which Mindler could do and deliver. This is a running organization, a startup which already has everything in place, a business plan, model, and still we were looking at a couple of additional elements we could look at, which could help us add more value to the clients. And once we thought in that direction, automatically the revenue bit also came in. So yeah, so that was one important way to look at it. Apart from that, continuously adding more and more, integrating more products. Like in the scope, if you go back 5 years ago, in our document would be to create like a one-stop solution for all students. Now there would be multiple things that would come in, and obviously that would depend upon what is working right now. So what kind of organization, what kind of tech companies are doing really well, what would we like to integrate, which ones we would like to prioritize. So those are some things which have been happening on the go, as in when we feel the basis business demand, client requirements, and so on.
Right. So I think, Isha, I mean, about ambidextrity that you just mentioned. That's something which I'm sure will stick by me too, because it's really food for thought when you think of it. And speaking of product roadmap, what does the immediate future roadmap for Mindler look like?
So right now, I think we are we just launched our SaaS portal last year. We also introduced a new product, which is the Scholarship Hunt, which had a subcategory of internship program. So we did a lot. If I just actually go back, the kind of work and the kind of amount of work the team pulled out in COVID was absolutely phenomenal. If I just try and put down the kind of stuff that we achieved, right from fundraising to launching different products, all of that happened during this year. So I think next few months, firstly, we want to first figure out how the market is shaping. There are a lot of product lines and product elements that we have mapped out. But again, the industry and the environment is not moving as you have planned, right? Again, we are having a huge COVID surge. We don't know how many months is this going to last. When will the schools reopen? So a lot depends on that. So I think it's going to be wait and watch for a few weeks before we are able to take a call for the coming period. But yes, basis our discussions in the last 6 months, we've already identified a lot of upgradations on our dashboard. A lot of new elements are going to come in terms of value added services and products which our students can take. Very heavy focus is going to be on our SaaS portal, which I think we have got a tremendous response for. Even the certification program, which has been one of the key highlights for us this year, which I think grew by 325%.
300. Yes,
Yeah,
that's right.
325% this financial year. So these are certain things which we will look at consolidating and growing further. Yeah.
Wow. That's great. I mean, hearing the journey of the entire startup from going from 0 to 1, that's really exciting to know, and how much can be done in the future, how much is achieved, how much can be done. But I think for you, what works best is being agile.
Yes, that's right.
Just adapting to what comes your way.
That's the only way left. There is no other choice now. So that's
I think
true.
one of the biggest elements also is this year the NEP has come in. So we are actually working, and I don't see the immediate impact of it maybe in the next 1 or 2 years, but I think that's something which is very long termish, and all of us are thinking about it. All of us are trying to ideate what all changes that we need to make to the product if required to adapt to that. So yeah, I think being agile is going to be true for any young entrepreneur getting out there. Absolutely.
Right. NEP as in the National Education Policy,
National
the
Education.
new one.
Yes.
That's correct. That's
Yes.
Right. I'm sure I read it. There's a lot that Mindler can do around it.
Yes,
That's like
definitely.
a vision document which we always wanted, but I hope it sees the day light of
But
implementation.
I would like to add, not only for Mindler, this is revolutionary for all students, and it's
Agree.
brilliant, much needed. It's something, of course, Mindler will benefit a lot from, but it's going to be a great, because at least students will be able to study what they enjoy rather than just
Right.
doing everything, just running the rat race and not really knowing what they should be doing. So as a whole concept, I wish it came out like 15 years ago, so we also went through the NEP. But
Same,
yeah,
right.
but of course it's going to take, I feel it's going to take a few years to really get into action. But yeah, lucky
It's
students, whoever
right.
whoever are going to be in school in those years.
It's a more exploratory approach, in my opinion. You intern, then you say what works the best for you, and then you go ahead in it.
Yes, and also subject choices have become open, right? Like you can, pursue any particular. You can do engineering without having particular subjects. So that really opens up opportunities for students. But let's see how it's actually executed. That's something we'll all have to wait and watch and see what really happens there.
Right. So, Isha, this question is directed to you that since you're the director of partnerships and alliances, Mindler has had great success tying up with schools and institutions. So, how do you manage the quality being delivered with the growing demand? How do you strike the balance between the demand and the supply side that way?
Right. So, like you already said, that we work with a lot of schools. Of course, we're working with a lot of schools, and we have an in-house team of close to 25 to 30 coaches who are doing the delivery in these schools. We have senior coaches, we have junior coaches, we have mid-level coaches, we have all kinds of coaches. But like you rightly said, if you're approaching so many schools, just 30, a team of 30 cannot go and do the delivery, or cannot be reaching out to the thousands and more schools that we're going to be reaching out to. So of course these 30 people are definitely constantly trained and qualified, and we are doing a lot of training checks and so on and so forth. But over and above that, when you look at our ICCC program, which is the International Certified Career Coach program, through which we have trained 15,000 career coaches. So out of this big bucket of 15,000 coaches, we constantly identify those career coaches who have exquisite profiles, who get what we are doing, who feel for the cause, who feel the importance of career coaching, who of course have a certain skill set that we are looking out for. So we kind of bring them on board as consultants, as associates, and they help us in achieving all the goals that we have when it comes to maintaining the quality and also reaching the demand and supply side. So that's how we pretty much do it. And for all our career coaches, we are constantly having lots of training programs. We ensure that they are engaged with us even after they finish the certification, so they always remember the brand Mindler. So that's how we really do it. That works out very well for us, even the quality of the product, as well as ensuring that the supply and demand work well together. So that's how we do it. And of course we have a whole business development team to actually onboard those schools. Of course that's a whole different team. And from our ICCC network, we also end up getting a lot of people who might not want to become career coaches, but those people actually want to do the business development, wherein they are very well connected to schools, institutions, government bodies. So we onboard them. We have Mr. Vansh who's on our team, who trains them, and then they are kind of going and approaching schools. And we also have a set of people who are trained and qualified to do the delivery. So that's how it really balances out.
Right. So by now the processes and everything are pretty well set up from what I can see. Very the dispersion of responsibilities and everything, it's structured.
It is structured and unstructured at the same time. There are lots of use cases involved. Actually, I wish it was as simple. Or each school wants a customized program. That's why if you'll ever go onto our website, you'll never see a particular price when it comes to schools, because every school wants different kind of workshops. They want something different in the portal. And so yeah, it is structured, but of course we're always thinking on our feet in terms of how can we make this possible for the school. It's never like हम यही offer करते. It's never like we put a full stop after showing what we have. If they ask us for 5 extra things, we'll be like, give us 1 week, 2 weeks, and we'll be back with it. In case we need tech integrations, then we take a longer time. But if it's about the delivery part, we never say no. So that's something we've definitely learned, and we always ensure that we'll definitely make it possible if the school asks for it. So yeah, I would say both ways.
Right. So the entire team of Mindler is a go-getter.
I would say so. They are. The team is extremely good, and the team plays a big role in everything that's happening. Our team, of course, we are constantly looking at training them further and making sure that they are happy in what they're doing, taking care of their emotional health, keeping them happy. The last 1 year has been so tough for everyone, but honestly speaking, our team has surprised us. Like, they have worked so hard that almost if you wouldn't work, if you worked 1 hour less than them, you felt like, oh my god, I'm going to go back at night and work 2 more hours, because they have really surprised us when it came to their working ethics in the past 1 year. So that's been great. But keeping them motivated is also something we constantly try to do.
Right. And rightly so.
Yes, I think that's the most important at the end of the day. Keeping your team motivated is something extremely critical and important. I think that really results in the growth of the firm.
Right. So Mindler certainly faces competition from many players out there. When I was doing my research, I saw so many players. So sometimes there is a perfect product, but the growth isn't as expected. What approach do you take to continue gaining traction and expanding the consumer base?
So if you look at the landscape for us, competition is there. There are a lot of players. They're doing so many things. However, how do I put it? The market is so massive. It's like all of them into 100 put together could not serve it, right? So I am a big fan of coexisting. I'm a big fan of collaborating. As long as the products and the vision is in alignment, I think that's the way to proceed in today's era. There are a lot of strengths that our product has in terms of the assessment. It's the strongest out there. The kind of ecosystem that we have built. What we are in fact doing is a lot of local regional players, people who are doing fantastic work, they're entrepreneurs in their own ways. The SaaS portal that we have built is actually with the vision to work with them, and they get to use our technology to drive their operations. So that's how we look at it. Can we get 1000 such coaches in the next 2 years to do that? We have already touched the 200 mark. Can we increase that by 5x? Can we further increase it by 5x? I think that's where you go and reach the last mile, right? I could go, Isha could go, we could take a flight to Pune, meet the best schools, but you go 1 hour into Pune, then there is another town, then there are another 100 institutions. It's a completely different world. So unlike the normal conventional definition of competition, I think our space is extremely different, and I think this is true for education in large. After those players reach a certain size, you will see consolidation as well. But I think our industry is a little away from that, particularly our space. But yeah, the competition is there, and it's good. It's good. There are different players trying to do different things. They are trying to focus on different segments. They're finding their own niche. So it's good. It's pretty healthy out there, and having the right product. We have our own strengths, which we obviously highlight when we work with clients and all. So yeah.
Right.
I definitely, sorry, but I enjoy competition. I think it's not even because of the competitive word, but it's just so much you are learning, so much you're getting to know in terms of what they're thinking and how you are thinking and how you can think more and what can you come up with that may probably attract students or educators or principals more. So it's the whole process is fun. It's a bit challenging, so that makes it a little bit more exciting. It keeps you on your toes. So I mean that's something that I feel it's good. It's always good to have some competition around.
Right, definitely keeps you on your toes because you're always thinking, okay, now this is our next milestone. That's what we want to accomplish. And Prateek, what stands out for me is that when you say that you're a fan of coexisting and collaborating, I mean, that is actually a very interesting ideology. I was reading Zero to One, and over there, how Peter Thiel says that do something where there's no competition at all. But I think that's very tough these days. There will be competition. So instead of trying to outdo each other, there can be collaborations, very creative collaborations, symbiotic collaborations between various stakeholders and players. And I'm sure, I mean, something good can come out of it. Competition does not have to be in the bad spirit always.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
That's very true.
So speaking of continuous monitoring and feedback of traction, what are the key metrics that you use for Mindler as a startup in this industry?
So some of the key metrics that we use would be elements like the net promoter score, constant feedback, accuracy rate, maybe looking at the retention rate. So we are constantly doing all of this just to know whether how is it all working out for us, whether it's our students, whether it's with the educators who are getting trained and certified, whether it's our partners. So we're using these metrics with all of them, and we're constantly keeping them engaged by sending newsletters or some kind of letters just so that they know what's happening in the space. And I think that works out very well, and Prateek and I make sure that we do it a lot of this personally also, so that there is they can come and trust us and actually share it, so they always feel like we are keen on knowing what the feedback is rather than on a superficial level. So we do organize these sessions wherein one of us or Parikshit or Vansh or Savane is there, so that they can be candid and they can discuss. And as soon as they give us some sort of feedback suggestion, from wherever we get it, we, like I said previously also, whether it's something new or something that is existing, we ensure that we rectify it, or we work on the feedback immediately, as soon as possible. So that works out well for us. Prateek, anything you'd like to add?
I think completely in sync. Those are some of the key metrics we would look at. Apart from that, there are internal metrics, largely from a financial angle, which we keep on tracking, which are important both from an investor and internal business perspective. But yeah, I think they're largely customer centric. Most of them keeping a track, because very, very important. Those are stuff which gets mapped out, like as basic as any student giving an interaction or having an interaction with our mentors, etc. An immediate Uber kind of a mechanism of a rating. We get feedback. If in case it is not up to the mark, immediately there are alerts set in. The team member gets emailers, and we are all on top
And
of
we
it.
personally call them up then. Typically, a lot of times, I mean, we
Yeah.
personally call them up and just check with them what's happening, because
Thank God
feedback
the
is the
numbers
most
are limited. We
important.
can personally call them up.
Yeah. The numbers are limited, maybe that's why, but we ensure,
But
because I feel getting to know feedback is very important for us to be
Hmm.
relevant. One relevant
Definitely.
feedback can change, a lot in the system.
Right. So zooming in on the career counseling industry, how is the space changing?
Isha, you want to take that?
Uh, so I'll give you my view on that. Yes, it is changing phenomenally.
Right.
I mean, like let's give you an example. So I come from Vellum, or not that being the important part, but years ago, if you would go and walk into the wall of fame of your school, it was all about, in class 12 this person got 99%, this person got
Yeah.
98%, and these were the leaders of the school, and so on and so forth. But now I feel it's changing. You will see where these students went to study, which colleges did they go to, which are the leading colleges they went to. So that's a very important tracking point for parents or anyone who's going to be putting their daughter or son to any particular school. So that has changed, wherein giving importance to where the child goes after they finish their schooling. So that of course has to do with the importance and relevance of career coaching, moving up the ladder. In general, also, it has changed a lot, at least in the last few years. In my experience, I have seen a lot of people actually understand the importance of career coaching. And I'm not talking about students. More than students, parents and educators need to understand why career coaching and counseling is important. So that is changing. People's perspectives are changing. Of course, it's going to take some time. It's not going to happen automatically. Maybe with the NEP coming in, it might get, it might become a bit faster, because it might become mandatory for schools to have career coaches and counselors. But that's of course something that we can only speak of when it actually comes in. But yes, the space has definitely evolved. People are understanding the importance of career coaches. Like I was saying that we do the ICCC conference every month, and we get around 1,500 people to attend that conference every month. That definitely means we have people who want to know what this profession is all about. We need 1.5 million career coaches in India currently to mentor and guide the big population of students we have. So the effort of actually people coming and attending this 2-day event, and of course maybe going in for the advanced or the master's level, speaks a lot, because people are understanding the importance and why career coaching is important. So I feel the change has come. It is here to stay, but of course it will take some more time to stay, to really stick on.
Right. An increasing number of people, in my opinion, are understanding that instead of letting life take you to the profession that you would eventually like, instead just get some clarity beforehand and then work towards that.
And also the whole setup of marks is gone. Right now it's not
Hmm.
only about marks, it's about your skills. I mean, even in any profession that you get into, people would prefer somebody who has the right skill set than the right marks. You would want someone who doesn't only have the technical skills. You will want someone with the growth mindset, who can learn, who can quickly change, who can be agile. So all of those things are more relevant now, because everything will be lost to automation eventually. So skills will always be the more important part, and people are maybe getting it a little bit now. So yeah.
Hmm. Right. So, Prateek, having expertise in growth strategy, what would you say to entrepreneurs in making who have a great product but very little idea of scaling? How can they be more effective?
Product to scale. Okay, so I read this saying very early. I remember, and I don't know if I know it verbatim, but it's something like, if the first version, if you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched it a bit too late. Now, I believe in it in a lot of ways. But however, I think the advice that I'm giving is extremely industry centric. Okay. Now, while I believe in it, I wasn't a big fan of launching too early. Okay. And the reason was, as I said earlier, it was extremely important for us to validate what we are putting out there. Right. When it comes to the assessment tools, when it comes to psychometrics, I think this answer could not work. But when it comes to a lot of product decisions that we make, which is largely related to UI, UX, or just getting the product out there, launching it. I think a lot of people have seen just hold back on finding the perfect product, and perfection is just the enemy of great, right? It does not let you move. Does not let you get towards the starting goal. So I think that's going to be one of my advice, that every entrepreneur needs to find that right time as to when do you start first, when do you feel your MVP or the product is actually there enough to go hit the market. I think that's one of the first things that you need to get right, because if you have got that right, then you have the right product out in the market and you can compare it. If it's a bit too early, a bit too late, you can't measure it. Then I think a lot of people try and do everything on their own, which I just don't get it. Why? I think you need to find the right set of partners. It's okay to be surrounded by people who know much better than you. I don't think so. Like if you look at the Mindler platform, it's a beautiful amalgamation of career guidance, psychometric, and tech and strategy, right? And you pull any one of those things out, it will fall down. It will not work in the same way, and that gives us the edge. So I think getting the right team internally to work on the product, and then finding the right set of partners who can help you scale, who can help you grow. And lastly, I would say that while you're growing in terms of sales, I think your customer support also needs to grow completely in sync with that. That's also something very, very important. That's something even we are working on, right? As we grow, making sure you have the right set of, like, sales and customer support has to be in sync. I think that is one of the key success story for scale. Otherwise, the moment you start getting feedback, you need to incorporate that, you need to act on it. And today we are sitting at about a 90% client retention rate. I think one of the keys to that is maintaining that. It could have been that maybe we could have 20 extra clients, but maybe we have focused those energies on retaining the existing clients and nurturing that. I think that has worked. So it's always that between the delivery and the strategy team, it's always this discussion that what pace do we want to grow, how many additional resources do we need to have. So that's a constant discussion, and I don't think so there's a right one solution to it. You go with the flow, you figure it out. You go a lot by your gut as to what do you need, how many resources. Hiring in today's time is a completely different era. In the last 1 year, we have had so many people coming in, and there are people who have Isha and I personally haven't even met, right, in person. There are people based out of different cities. There have been a few people, even I think we have just hired a couple of people from Dubai, and it's just remote working, and it's working seamlessly, and it's just unreal. I think yesterday one of our colleagues completed a year, and the first thing that we were discussing is that you have completed a year in the lockdown period and we haven't even met. So that's how crazy it is. But yeah, I think the current environment gives a lot of additional benefits to people who are trying to scale up, because the environment is conducive, particularly to tech. So that's something which is there, and a lot of organizations have ride that wave despite all the challenges that they've seen.
Right. So a lot of factors definitely go into scaling up. No right solution or no show that fits all.
Not that I know of. If you get to know, do let us know.
I will, for sure. But right, like Isha said, that be ambidextrous, and that's exactly what I could pick out from what you said. That just constantly keep exploring and see what works for you.
True.
And so, moving on to the last question for this part, I'd like to ask that Mindler recently raised funding, and how tedious was the process? What are your top tips to the entrepreneurs who are trying to raise funds?
I think the answer to this would be cliched, but it's very, very true. I think you need to find the right set of partners who you're raising funds from. Very, very critical. They need to sink in with your story. They need to understand the journey that you have had. So over the last few years, one of the things which we did was we did not rush in. It has been a journey. It has taken its own time, but it's come at the right time, I feel. We have largely been in the initial stage, we were bootstrapped, and we raised funds from our own existing networks. Now recently we had an external investor coming in as well, and it's working really, really well. Now we're moving towards a series A, so we are going to be doing that. I think for a lot of entrepreneurs who are looking at raising funds, I think apart from the team and the product, all that is there. My input would be, I think the real factor actually is going to be networking, right? Your product, if you want to just increase the pace of getting that done, right, growing the right set of people, having the right network will be extremely keen. I remember when I wanted to start with this fundraising process, I think for the first year I just met a few people without even having anything in terms of mind of what do I
Yeah.
want to raise, what money I want to raise. It was just through my SB alumni network. I would meet with a few guys and the top VCs, and many at times they would even wondering there's a company which is not even launched and the founder wants to meet us, etc. It was just casual chat, just chatting up, getting to
Mm.
know, and maybe we might raise funds from them in a few months or a few years. But I think that was extremely important, and then also knowing the right set of people who can connect you, who can get the
Mm.
initial dialogue going, uh, is the way forward. I think that's what I would really see.
Right. So just
Something
get
what
some
Creek is
idea.
going to be doing.
Yeah,
Very soon.
yeah, very.
Something Creek is going to be doing. So yes, so here you hear it from the man yourself.
Right. We are going to be doing that very soon, and I'm very excited for the process. So, moving on to the second part of today's episode, which is the Hustler's Corner. Here, Isha and Pratik will share their rules of thumbs, top tips, books they benefited from, and what to do when in doubt. So, the first question is for you, Isha. We'd like to know the books which made you you, top recommendations, and what are you reading these days?
Uh, I can give the top recommendations, but books that made me me. I'm not too sure if it's books are the only part of what
Mm.
made me who I am. There's a lot that contributes.
Mm.
Uh, Currently, I am reading this book by Chitra Banerjee, which is The Forest of Enchantments. So that's something that I'm reading currently. That's Sita's version. But otherwise, there are a lot of self-help books also, which I can tell everyone, which they can explore reading, which would be probably all of Harari books, the 21st century skills, or be it Sapiens. Read those books. I mean, it gives you a lot of perspective, so that's good. I'm not saying take everything word, don't take everything word by word. Of course, let your thinking also work, but it gives you a lot of perspective into how things are changing and how everything is going on. Other than that, I really enjoy Murakami books. I don't know if it is Akshata, do you like reading? Have you ever read Murakami?
No, I've actually never
So,
heard of Murakami.
Murakami. So that's a brilliant author, of course. Norwegian Wood happens to be one of my favorite books. You can, of course, see Shantaram lying somewhere there, but that's also one of my favorite books. Of course, it's something that I read long back, but I love revisiting a couple of chapters in that. Yeah, some of the books that I really have enjoyed reading would be these. Because I'm speaking and all books are coming in my mind now, I would also say Blink is brilliant, which is by Gladwell. Of course, it's a lot to do with how you should take decisions super fast, go with your gut. These are books that you read and you take some things from it, and of course, things that maybe don't make too much sense to you, you can obviously not take those things in.
Yeah.
But that's a brilliant book, and they have another book, The Tipping Point. That's also a great read. For all budding entrepreneurs, these are good reads, that I can tell you.
Great, great. So, most common mistakes that entrepreneurs make when they venture into startups. Pratik.
Okay, so I think having spent a lot of time with young budding entrepreneurs wanting to do this, also in college, etc. I think one of the key things which I personally always used to felt, and maybe some of them have actually gone out and done well, but I think validating the market need, right? Just
Mhm.
because we feel an idea is exciting and good, and because it's not been done or nobody has ever thought of it, I think that's for me. Honestly, it's a red flag. If nobody's ever thought of it, I think in today's time you need to double check, triple check, and 10 times go through that idea, because if nobody's never done it, because there might be a reason to it. So I think that's one thing. You need to validate whatever you're thinking from the market and the customer requirement perspective. I think that's one.
Mhm.
Second is, I would say, getting too focused on the product, right? I think in terms of importance, the customer and the team are more important. Product is critical, but I think getting just too focused on the product makes you stall. It does not let you move. I think product is something which has to grow. Even like for an organization like us, I think our main website portal would have transitioned at least 2 or 3 times in terms just the UI UX, right? Not that that has led to any immediate user changes, right? Which would be like, but yes, in terms of usage, in terms of
Mhm.
website traffic, in terms of navigation, all of that is there. And I think the last, but the most important is you have to get the team right. I think the core team has to be the secret sauce to your success. And
Mhm.
that's something which I've heard from every investor that I met, every presentation that you make. Everybody wants to know the team. I think, and I also feel a lot of people. While I myself come from the ISB background, but I think a lot of college tag me is too much hyped up. I think a lot of people are doing amazing stuff. So I think if they can find the right set of resources who come together and they can just blend in beautifully, it's gonna be good. I think that would be my advice.
Right. And so an entrepreneur's journey is exceptionally known to be full of highs and lows. There is so much unambiguity and confusion, tendency to be demotivated. What are your tips to sail that boat or sail that wave rather?
You want me to take it up first, Pratik?
Yes, yes, you should answer that. Okay.
So, just generally the person I am, am not somebody who gives up that fast. Like, I'm quite motivated like that. In fact, when I get feedback, I want to work on that faster than anything else. But just generally, typically saying some rule of thumbs would definitely be elements like having the growth mindset, knowing that things are going to keep changing, nothing will stay the same. And here is where I would say too much planning never helps. I'm not very structured as a person. I feel like you have to go with how things are working. Like, I'll go thinking that these will be my answers tomorrow, or this is how I'm going to talk about the product, but it'll completely change depending on who I'm meeting. So a couple of things like that. These are, then of course, having a great team is something that I genuinely feel is very important. So ensuring the health, mental health, all kind of, doing everything to make the team happy is something that's very critical for any organization, which we work upon. Networking is again something that is extremely important, that we constantly have to keep doing. So these are a couple of rule of thumbs that I would say have worked out very well for me. But yeah, along with some challenges that keep coming, but these rule of thumbs definitely help even resolve a lot of the challenges.
Right. And Pratik, would you like to add something to this?
Okay, so is this about the rule of thumbs which Isha was mentioning?
Right. It is about how to ride the waves of demotivation or unambiguity, tendency to give up, the highs and lows which almost every entrepreneur faces.
So honestly, like I that's it's very tough for me because it's very rarely that very few things can pull me down. I personally feel that. Genuinely, it takes a lot. So I personally don't really go by that. Um, Lows are just a part of the journey. I don't see them as highs or lows. You will have success or you will have failures. Failures are there to learn from. Just move on. There are certain, not everything is supposed to click. So just taking it too hard doesn't really make any sense. So things will work, things will not work. You just let it be and then you move on. And there are multiple instances, like things which are out of your control. I remember once we had organized a career fair in one of the top schools in Lucknow, and we had got the best universities. It was like a top grossing product suddenly we had created that year. And overnight CA protest happened, and the entire event had to be cancelled. Now, it was loss of revenue. It was loss of. Um, it was just a bad experience. Like everything you're done and something out of your control.
Yeah.
But you just live with it. You just tell yourself that there's nothing you could do about it. So move on and then try something else in a different way. But yeah, I think when you're doing that, keeping a track of the key elements in terms of the clients and the team is very, very important. So I think you have to take them along. uh, those are very, very important. But I think apart from that, this journey is supposed to be like that. Anybody wanting to become an entrepreneur expecting it to be a smooth sail, no, this is the wrong profession.
There's this saying that they say success has many fathers and failure is an orphan. So that's something that, at least entrepreneurs have to live by, that, failure will come and success will follow failure, of course. So it's part of the journey.
Yeah.
Definitely. So coming to the last question for today, Pratik and Isha, if you could go back in time and counsel your younger self, what would you say? What wisdom do you have now that you will share with that version of yourself?
Let's hear from you, Pratik, this time.
So I think I would not change too many things, but I think if I'm mentoring and guiding kids, I think let me put it like the things which I feel I did right. Because again, it's very difficult for me to go towards the other direction. It's just that my mind doesn't work like that. But things which I did right, get the right set of education, extremely critical. There is a lot of all these things saying going on that, oh, like there are so many people who don't graduate from the the colleges and they still make it big and all of that jazz. But I always tell kids those are exceptions. And if somebody goes to number one college in the world and does not complete it but exits from there on, it would have taken so much to get into an institute like a Harvard or a Stanford. And there are multiple examples, right? So education is critical. You need to learn. You can't learn everything on the job. It is good if you come with certain experience, certain learning. It will give you an edge. The odds of you succeeding will be higher. So I think that is one. Does not matter where you get your education from, as long as you learn, as long as you've got the right skill sets for that business model, I think that is critical. And the second would be networking. Building the right set of networks. So whether it is to hire the team or to get the clients, I think that really gives you an edge. So these are two things I think when you as a entrepreneur go live, when you launch your product, I think they make a huge difference if you have those two things going with you. So I think that's what I would give as an input to anybody who's looking at entrepreneurship as a career. And also be realistic about it, know about it. I think I remember in schools when we go and make presentations, and the biggest reason where kids want to take up entrepreneurship is because they don't want a 9 to 5 job. They don't realize it's a 24-hour job. So I think those kind of reality checks, particularly when you're looking at a career like this, is extremely important.
The advice that I would give to my younger self is to get myself a career coach. I mean, we didn't really have full-fledged career coaching or counseling back in the school. Luckily, things worked out well for me, so I'm very happy and blessed about that. But yes, there would have been a lot of things I would have done differently had I had a mentor or a career coach through the journey. But my mother turned out to be that mentor and coach, and she was never like, do this, do that. No, you will only do this. She was always like, whatever you want to do, do it, but do it with full heart and full passion, and you're sure to find success there. So in a way that turned out well. But I would tell students, confide in someone, get yourself a career coach, get to know about how the world is evolving so fast. Careers that existed 10 years ago are not there anymore, and careers that will exist 10 years after, we don't even know what they are right now. It's completely going to be changing. So that's something I would say. And everyone who will probably listen to this, get yourself a career coach. It's extremely important. It's something that will really benefit and value you. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Great. It was a lovely chat, very engaging and full of insights. Thank you so much, Prateek and Isha, for joining us today. It was one great episode. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Akshata. You were lovely and great. Thank you so much for hosting us, and all the best to you and Creek. I think the concept of Creek is fantastic. So wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wish you all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.